Sometimes you call somebody a sweetheart. He really was a sweetheart. Mismo le Adonai Rohi lo echsa binodeshe yavitzeni almei mincho ינעלם נפשי שואף ינחני במגלי צדק אוי למען שמו גם כי אלך בגצל מוות לא אירא רע כי אתה עמדי שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני תערוך לבני שולחן נגד צור תישן תבשמן ראשי כוסי רוויה אך טוב החסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.
Morning, David. Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The psalmist writes, O Lord, who shall dwell in your sanctuary? Who shall abide upon your holy mountain? He who lives with integrity, does what is right, and speaks the truth in his heart. Who has no slander upon his tongue, who does no evil to his fellow man. It's interesting to note that for the psalmist to be close to God, to dwell in his sanctuary, that you must remain close to his fellow human beings, treat others with the respect and dignity that they deserve. Humble men can live in God's sanctuary. Simple men who live their lives with compassion and love perhaps are most worthy to live in God's sanctuary. Lee Kutner was this kind of man. He was born in Niagara Falls. He lived there with parents, Jules and Anita, and Roz, his sister. When he was 9 years old, the family moved to Oak Park, Michigan. He had a good childhood and upbringing, and after high school went on to the University of Michigan. He was very proud of his school and a booster of their athletic teams. It made him feel so good that Mia was also a student at the University of Michigan Law School. He went on to George Washington University for his law school. Lee's parents decided to move the family to Denver. Lee moved there as well and later opened up a law firm, one of the two principal shareholders of the firm, with his friend Jeff. Lee met his beshert Cindy, and they spent a year apart. He, of course, wanted to marry her right away. Ultimately, he asked her with the gift of earrings. Cindy said, "Do I get the earrings even if I don't marry you?" But she did not say no. Lee was her guy. She knew that they would get married after their first date. In 1984, Lee and Cindy were married, and they had the most beautiful relationship from that time to the present day. They were close and loving and best friends every day of all those years. They were always together. They traveled. They had a deep love for one another. Lee did not have a mean word about Cindy ever. He was never unkind to her. Before Lee passed away, he spent 2 months getting things in order so that Cindy would have all that she needed after he was gone. He made sure that she would have no worries. That is, in fact, what happened. Lee and Cindy were blessed with three children, Justin, Alyssa, and Mia. Justin brought Jenny into the family and a grandchild, Charlie. Lee adored the children. Alyssa followed him into the legal profession. Lee mentioned to her so many times how proud he was of her. She got a job in New York with a firm. He would tell all the Denver judges about her. He was interested in her life. When he had an interesting case, he would dial her in. He was supportive in all ways, the best dad ever. He always felt loved by me. Me and Justin agreed. He was trusted like a superhero, filled with depth and advice. He knew a lot of people because of his work and friendships. He was amazing in court. All of the lawyers respected him. He was a model for other attorneys. They knew him all around the country. They all loved him. While the kids were growing up, he was present for all their games and activities. He would leave work early to be present for all their activities. His office was filled with all the kids' stuff, the little art projects from school, and anything else that would remind him that these children were a very special lot. They were so important to him throughout his life. He also truly loved being a grandfather. He wanted a grandson. Justin and Jen provided one for him in March of this year. He cherished that baby. Wanted to hold the legs at Charlie's breasts. After Charlie, he told Justin and Jen, now it's time for a girl. Being a grandfather was a very big deal for him. For the kids, Lee was accessible, fun, happy, never angry. He had a dry sense of humor everybody enjoyed, and he took joy in the little things, and he made them funny. He was a solid personality. He didn't react, but responded to complex things easily and thoughtfully. With Mia, he was involved with sports. She had a very wonderful relationship with her parents as she was the youngest, therefore alone with her parents for 2 years. She and Lee were Nuggets fans. They were so happy to share University of Michigan games. He was amazed and proud of her. She's the first doctor in the family. Very proud. They would ski together, go to professional ball games together. When Jen came into the family about 10 years ago, we treated her always like a daughter. She's a lawyer as well, and they understood each other. This made her feel very good. She so appreciated his generosity and love. Lee loved Cindy's family, her parents, sisters, and brothers-in-law. They, of course, are all devastated. So sad they can't be together today at the funeral. They loved him deeply. He had a great relationship with his brothers-in-law. They became friends over time, very close, like family. Cindy and Lee have many friends, and they are all devastated, like all of us are. And Justin, I didn't mention Justin. And Justin, who I got to know on a trip to New York, a wonderful, wonderful young man. And I know Lee was very proud of him. Judaism was very important to Lee. To be affiliated with the synagogue all of these years was a priority for him. He did a lot of Jewish activities with his kids. When he was older, he liked going to services. When Jules passed away, Lee would go to Minyan, where he was a wonderful son, brother, spouse, father, and grandfather. Very special to many friends. He was a friend of our congregation. I personally am very sad about his passing. I remember his smiling face, his soft voice, being quick to laugh. He had a unique voice and truly kind and warm presence. The Kutner family has been very close and important to me and to this community. We will not forget Lee and the splendid life. We will not forget all of those moments that he made a difference in our lives, even in the small ways. Help him free that Lee now rest in peace, free of all illness and pain. Pray that God will bind him up in the bonds of eternal life. Hope that he will rest in peace. Justin, you have a few words.
Thank you, Rabbi. 15 months ago, the same week, my wife and I told my parents that we were expecting our first child. My dad told us he had pancreatic cancer. Don't Google it, he told us. We didn't Google it. You can call me anytime you want, day or night. I'm here. Ask me anything. Call me. I'll always talk to you day or night, he said. If you know anything about this disease, you know it's quick. There's no cure. The treatment options are limited, and there's little hope. We had good news along the way. He responded well to chemo. He had a good attitude. He was open to experimental treatment options when things looked bleak. He did what my dad always did. He looked at it rationally. He weighed the options and decided he wanted to do everything in his power to live, regardless of the difficulty. His resolve was absolute. Though he was on his own hard, terrifying, and difficult journey, he remained rock steady. He wanted to do whatever he could. What normally is a prognosis of just a couple months couple months left turned into more than a year for him. And the whole time he was just so happy to be a part of the family. Hearing what we were doing, he lived to wake up with my mom, to revel in our accomplishments, to rejoice in knowing that we were doing well. One of the last conversations he had with my mom, he told her, I was really just hoping to live to see how everything turns out. He said to us kids, if my legacy is that I leave behind as my children, then that's enough for me. My mom and dad's love story as well was something to behold. They met on a blind date in their 20s, set up by their mothers who were in the BMH sisterhood together. When my dad arrived at my mom's house to pick her up, he found not just my mom there waiting, but my mom's mom, Ketsy, her mother, Sonia, and the rest of all my mom's sisters. Never intimidated, their date turned into many more, and my dad knew just 3 weeks in that he wanted to marry my mom. Together 38 years and married for 36, their marriage, at least to us, was flawless. They built a life together, and my dad would often look around and say to her, I can't believe all of this is ours. Dad was everything to my mom, the love of her life. He knew this, and he felt the same. He was kind and generous and loved her fiercely. When he knew things were not going well, he said that he had hoped he'd been the very best husband. My mom told him there was never a time she didn't feel truly loved by him. Towards the end, he made sure she was always taken care of because that's who he was, a family man who always took care of his family. My parents never let life pass them by. They loved going to the theater with their friends, going to dinner together, traveling to interesting and unique places like Cambodia, Turkey, Tahiti. They loved keeping their family's traditions alive. They loved adventure, all while being rooted in their culture. They made every moment count, and they have nothing to look back on and regret, other than there never could have been enough time for them to be together. When you look at my parents, there can never have been a better husband for my mom or a better wife for my dad. They never tired of talking to each other, and that's what's most heartbreaking about this moment is that there's a story left unfinished. A few days ago, my sisters, both of whom live in New York, moved home a few months ago. Sorry, they moved home to Denver for the time being to be there with him and for him. He always expressed how proud he was of all of us. Me as a doctor, and he enjoyed way too much hearing the details of the surgery she was involved in. He loved telling everyone about her work. She's an oral and maxillofacial surgery at Cornell, and she went to Michigan. He beamed whenever he shared this about Mia, who we called Shorty. At home, we all talked, laughed, watched movies, played games, imagined future vacations, and we watched Jenny and my son Charlie, who was born in March, learn to roll and eat and almost but not quite yet crawl. I started my own business in marketing, advertising, and politics, and my dad and I spent hours talking about my work and the interesting things I was doing and who I was helping to run for office. I always felt his pride. We talked to my father nearly every day. We spent every weekend having brunch, Shabbat dinner, lighting candles before Shabbat, or just hanging out at the house with him and my mom. We made a little family bubble, not just for COVID, but for Dad, to truly enjoy time with all of us. We never dwelled on the illness. Just being around his family that he and my mother have created over the past 36 years in the home they built together, surrounded by the family they raised, is what was most important to my dad. My dad was known to many other people, though, in many other capacities. To my aunts and uncles, his brothers-in-law, he was a friend and in a rare club of people who got to marry into the Klausners. A very special place to be in, a very happy, loving, and tight family to be with. To my Aunt Rory, he was her brother and remaining connection to their shared memories of their parents and their families. To his dear friends, Doug and Cynthia Wax and Andy Bernstein and Evan Zuckerman, they were like family. To his business colleagues, my dad was an unending source of advice, guidance, support, wit, and knowledge. My sister Alyssa told us a story the other day. She's now a lawyer at a firm in New York, and she specializes in reorganization and bankruptcy, the same field my dad practiced in for 37 years, which meant more than words could ever express to him. She said she had to make a call to somebody connected to a case she was working on, a normal, routine call to a guy she didn't know. And when the guy at the other end of the phone, a much older lawyer in New York, heard Alyssa introduce herself, his first question was, "Wait, do you know Lee Kutner?" He spent the next 15 minutes telling her about how my dad gave him his first start in law years ago, how Lee was a brilliant attorney, how Lee taught him tricks and gave him advice. Then when Alyssa called us and told us the story, my mom, my other sister, Mia, and I all immediately jumped in. Oh my gosh, this has all happened to us too, like a million times. I can't count the number of times someone has asked me if I'm Lee Kutner's son. And I was never nervous to say, yes, absolutely, because I knew what would follow was always a long story about how my dad had helped them or did something fundamentally positive for them or shared some free advice with them. My sisters and I will forever be proud to say to anyone who asks, yeah, Lee Kutner is my dad. So now as we spend this cold afternoon here in a place none of us wanted to be, talking about someone we all love but lost entirely too soon, I know myself, my wife, my sisters, my mom are all thinking the same thing. I wish we could call him anytime, day or night. I wish we could watch more movies with him, share more laughs, go on more trips, hear more ride jokes. There's no way to sum up the life of someone in a speech like this. No words will ever do his life justice. We can never accurately explain how the love he shared with my mom ran so deep and so strong that they were genuinely inseparable and remain an inspiration for me and my wife and I know for my sisters too. There's no story I can tell you that will make you feel as loved as I did whenever I heard the excitement in my dad's voice when he would say my name when we'd come visit. There's no way to really encapsulate the feeling we all felt as kids when he'd walk into the house after a day at work and put down his briefcase and give us all a hug. So now, as we sit Shiva and mourn for the loss of a great man, a dad, a friend, the loss that we're mourning isn't that he didn't live his life how he wanted or to its fullest. That's something we'll always, always celebrate and hold on to. What we're mourning are the Shabbat dinners where we won't hear him say Hamotzi. We're mourning the trips we'll never take together, the moments with his grandchildren that were stolen, the trips down the aisle with my sisters, and the kisses on the cheek to my mom. We mourn, and rightfully so. Lee Kutner was truly loved. He was a blessing to everyone who knew him. We miss you already, Dad.
Hi, I'm Steve Rosen and had the joy and the honor of being Lee's first brother-in-law. There aren't enough good things you can say about Lee, but I'll just take the time to just say a small bit. Lee was the best of the best. In my life, as is the case for all the Klausner brothers-in-law, I was born into a family with only sisters. I could relate to women. We understood each other. Men, however, were a mystery to me. I was the guy at the party who was in the kitchen with the women. As fate would have it, I ended up with 7 brothers. They were all unique and special and mean so much to me. With their help, I was able to get comfortable with men as well. But Lee was like the shamus in the Hanukkah. He stood out and he ignited us. His was an old soul. Last night, we were blessed to be in Golden with the kids to walk the river and enjoy the seasonal lights. We met at the library beside the river, and as it was turning dark, we were fortunate enough to witness a rare conjunction of planets. It was amazing. Jupiter and Saturn almost touching directly above the Big M at the peak of Mount Galbraith, an event that hasn't happened in hundreds of years. Lee was also a rare conjunction of amazing, unusual, and rare qualities. Like Jupiter and Saturn, which take many years to orbit the sun, he was slow and steady. He never made a negative comment, but instead illuminated our world with wisdom and courage. He was brilliant and caring. He never called out for attention for his many accomplishments, but let us be the special ones in the room with him. He was an incredible father and husband who created a loving home with his special bride, Cindy. They raised terrific, strong, and accomplished kids. Like me, he loved cool cars and driving fast. What's not to like? It is my wish and prayer for the family that we can all take a page from his book of life and go forward with our foot on the accelerator, with hope and a smile on our faces.
Good afternoon. I'm Doug Wax. Cynthia and I consider Cindy and Lee our dearest friends. Lee Moss Kutner, affectionately known to Cynthia and me as Mr. Lee. We always called him Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee was not only my friend, but he grew to be my best friend, my advisor, my confidant, my lawyer, by the way, who would never bill me. He was my golfing partner, and he became my brother. From the early beginnings, we became fast friends as neighbors in Aurora. Although Cindy and I went to school since 7th grade, we did not become close until this time. Cindy and Cynthia quickly became the best of friends, and Lee and I were soon to follow. I have fond memories of Lee at the neighborhood party, both of us wearing our very short OP shorts. And then there was Lee's astounding gardening ability. I quickly gave him the nickname Herb Gundel and called him Herb for many a year. Or there was the time that we watched Cindy and Cynthia throwing tomato worms over the fence, smashing them on the driveway, and also having the joy of children together. We grew very, very close. Cynthia and I traveled together with Lee and Cindy. We went to Nuggets games. If not to watch basketball, Lee and I went for the Dippin' Dots at halftime. We had dinner together at least once a week. So many great times and memories together. Times we will always cherish. He taught me so very much. Love of family, love of life, how to be calm, how to be positive, and most of all, how to be a mensch. Yes, Lee Kutner was the true definition of a mensch. I have had a few health issues over the years, and I remember telling Lee that when you are ill, everyone can be sympathetic and concerned, but you never know how someone really feels until it's you. Lee always handled his mind and his heart with dignity and compassion for his family and friends. I continually told him, no one is tougher than you, and that held true to the very end. From beginning to end, he always had a positive outlook. The last few weeks when I would come to visit him, we would sit down and talk, and he'd look at me and he'd say, Doug, you're so depressed. That was his, there he was in his own state of mind, telling me in his own way to be positive. I can remember during the last recession, standing in the ocean in the South Pacific, telling him how concerned I was about my retirement, and him telling me, don't worry, it'll be okay. It'll all come back. So many memorable conversations, walking on the beach, standing in the ocean, golfing or out to dinner. That's just the way he was, always calm and always positive. Then there was that wonderful sense of humor, always laughing, always happy. We all thought with his positive outlook and the doctor's reports, he was curable. I was sure, and so was he. Whenever I asked him how he was feeling, he said, always, I feel fine. I really do feel fine. That was Lee. Don't, here. I want to read a few of the texts that were sent to me by my family. From my son-in-law, Ricky. Lee was just a genuinely good human being. He will be sorely missed. The obituary was about as good as anyone could have said it. I'm so sorry. From my son-in-law, Drew, who's an attorney. Well said, Ricky. I was thinking earlier today while looking at the pictures of Lee that I genuinely enjoyed every conversation I had with him. He was always interested in how my family and career was doing. I'm sure that was how he was with all of us. He was a very good person. And from my wife today. Lee was genuinely one of the finest gentlemen that I have ever met. The reality of aging is we lose the ones we love and cherish. And we live with the memories we built. For us, it was 36 years. Don't take family and friendships for granted. They're a gift. Remember, a good thing never lasts forever. Don't waste time. Lee, God loves you, and so do we. Gone, but never forgotten. May you forever be a lasting impression on everyone you touch. I love you.
I'm Alan Schreiber. I'm one of the Lee's brother, and I'm honored to be here today, and I appreciate you asking me to speak. I've known, I knew Lee for the better part of 4 decades, and Justin, I can't improve on that. Was brilliant, but I can't improve on what you had said about him. But I've always viewed the true measure of a man about the way he does things and who he really is. Um, my daughter, Ariel, and her wonderful husband, Tom, um, had their wedding on September 14th, 2019. That was this very same day that Lee found out that he had the illness that brought us here today. Um, he showed up at my daughter's wedding and never said a word, never mentioned it, participated in all the activities, and it was just amazing. And I want all of you out there to think if you could have done that. I think about that a lot, and I'm not sure I could. And that's because family meant that much to him in the true tradition of the Clausners and Butsy and Ketsy. And he was not just a brilliant lawyer and a magnificent son, husband, father. The word mensch is insufficient. That's we throw that word around all the time. He was beyond a mensch. He was a godlike figure. And the only thing I can tell you is that his children should honor his memory by living like he did. And if you do that, it's all worthwhile. I don't know exactly what to say or what to do to try and take away your pain. I can't do that. If I could, I would, and you're just going to have to hang in there. Listen, these are dark times. We love you. We are here for you, and whatever you need, just let us know.
Thank you all for really beautiful words. Really beautiful words. El Shaddai, Almighty God of the living and the dead, send comfort to onward to the grave, but please, 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 stay as far away from each other as possible. There are various pods of family here, and we have to all remain safe. So please keep your distance. Everybody will stop for just a minute and we'll let the family say Kaddish. You can follow me. Yitkadal, Yitkada, Shemei Rabba, Yalma Divra, Kirute, Yamlich Machute, V'chayechon, V'yomechon, V'chaye, V'chol Beit Yisrael, V'agala, U'bizman Kariv, Yimaru, Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba, Mevarach, Le'elam V'lo Maya, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar, V'yitrova, V'yitnaseh. V'hadar, v'taleh, v'halal, shemei, v'kudsha, v'richu. V'ela, v'nkol, v'chata, v'shirata, v'shbichata, v'nechamata, damiran, v'yamad, v'maru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'maru, amen. Oseh shalom v'mromav, v'yaseh shalom. Aleinu thou call Israel, Bimaru. And everybody, we will be having Shiva Minyan on Zoom this afternoon at 4 and 4 o'clock throughout the week through Thursday. So please feel free to Zoom in and we'll be able to say more and be together at that time. Now the memorial prayer.
מלא רחמים, שוכן במרומים, המצא מנוחה נכונה, כנפי השכינה במעלות קדושים ודיורים כזר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמת לב משה Ben Yehuda ben the Shena Shalach Leolamo began Eden, I began Eden Tehei Menuchato Anabal Rachamim Hastireu בסתר כנפיך לעולמים וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו אדוני הוא נחלתו וינוח בשלום על משכבו ונאמר אמן.